is. What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is wrong with you?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ryno's Rants, the final Ryno's Rants of the regular season as your Minnesota Vikings closed out the 2024 season on a sour note yesterday afternoon against the Detroit Lions, falling flat and finishing the season with a 30-20 loss. Good evening, Ant. Good Abe. Good evening, Doc. Good evening, everybody in the chat. Thank you for joining. We're going to do a little bit of an abbreviated show tonight. I don't want to take too much time because, as everybody knows, and you can see over my shoulder back there, there is a semi-important football game going on. So I'm sure everybody wants to watch that. So we will kind of hit the high points here, and then everybody can go check that out here in a little while. But, yeah, I mean, that first half of the game yesterday, the Vikings looked like they forgot to come to Detroit. I mean, everybody was flat. The offense was flat. The defense was flat. Justin Jefferson didn't have a catch in the first quarter. Then they woke up a little bit, and Nick Mullins started throwing the ball around. Justin Jefferson, who needed 118 yards to get to 1,000 for the year, finished with 191, I believe it was. He is the Detroit Lions. He has given, before the game yesterday, they were averaging giving up 126 yards per game to Jefferson. Now with the 191 yesterday, that number will climb a little bit, but that is more than any one player has accumulated against any one opposing team in NFL history. Justin Jefferson becomes the fourth player in NFL history to have 1,000 yards receiving in each of his first four seasons. And only the third time in NFL history that a wide receiver has gotten 1,000 yards in 10 games or less. So he finished with 1,070 some odd yards, whatever it was. But got that taken care of. And then Vikings were rolling along. They were acting like they maybe might make a push to win that game. And then Nick Mullins remembered that he was Nick Mullins and threw 2 interceptions on consecutive drives. So, you know, that was the infuriating thing with Nick Mullins and all that stuff. I mean, in the 2 games Mullins played against the Lions, he threw for over 800 yards. Good evening, Brian. Unfortunately, along with that 800-plus yards, he also threw 6 interceptions. So, you know, it's if Mullins could eliminate those turnovers, the guy can throw the ball. Do I think he's a starting quarterback in this league? No, I do not. Could he be a decent backup in this league? Yeah, he absolutely can. If he can eliminate those stupid mistakes that he is prone to be making and showed it. I mean, and it's not just Mullins. We had 34 turnovers this year, which I believe is like the third most in team history. The last time we had that many turnovers was the year that Leslie Frazier got fired in 2013. And then also believe that was 37 turnovers that year. And I think 34 turnovers we had in 2010, the year Brad Childress got fired. So, yeah, not a great performance holding on to the ball, and continued the streak again. The Vikings have only made the playoffs in consecutive years once in this century. For as good as this team typically tends to be, that's not a very good number. But you know, with that game yesterday, there were like the tag says in the beginning of the episode, we end up with more questions than we have answers on this team currently. Biggest ones from a coaching side of things, is Brian Flores going to be around next year? I tend to think that he will be. The head coaching vacancies that are going to be available right now. I don't know that any of those necessarily fit his situation. Right, of course, Black Monday, Arthur Smith was fired in Atlanta. Ron Rivera was fired in Washington. Of course, you already had the opening in Carolina. You had the opening in Los Angeles for the Chargers, and you have the opening in Las Vegas for the Raiders. Now, I think Antonio Pierce should be getting the job in Las Vegas. I thought he did a pretty good job as far as taking over the team when McDaniels was let go. The players love him. He's a fiery guy. He's, he played recently, so he's got that kind of deal with his players. I think they should give him a shot. They made a mistake last time by, Rich Bisaccia did well as the interim coach, and then they ditched him to go to Josh McDaniels. I don't think they should make that same mistake twice. I think that Pierce should get the job, but I'm not Lloyd Christmas, Al Davis Jr. over there, so I don't get a say. But what sucks is only sport to follow long dark night until camping season. I hear you, Doc. We still got games up until February. Granted, it's not the Vikings, so it's not the same, but and then got a couple months of NASCAR that I follow until it gets warm enough for the lake. Could probably upgrade a little by getting rid of Dobbs and Mullins, going after a bridge quarterback like Minshew. Dobbs is not going to be here next year. He's a free agent. They're not going to re-sign him. Mullins is signed for next year, so he will at least be here in the preseason, I would think. It's going to come down to what happens with the quarterback. Heard not long ago Atlanta might trade for Belichick. I don't think it's going to be Atlanta. I've heard that Tepper in Carolina wants Belichick. Now, I don't know if Bill Belichick would go to a situation like that where you've got a meddlesome asshole owner that has zero patience for any kind of stuff. So I don't know if that's the situation or not. Tired old fam could care less about JJ's individual records. I want a Super Bowl contending. I hear you, Brian. And honestly, I typically don't care about individual stuff either. But yesterday, we pretty much knew that the Vikings were going to be done. Jefferson was close. I wanted to see him get it just for the sake of doing so. Jefferson was one of the guys who even last week against Green Bay, this week, you could tell that it bothered him that they were losing, that he was pissed, and he was trying out there his damnedest. I mean, the kid had 191 yards yesterday. So, which lake? I am on Big Cormorant Lakes, which is just southwest of Detroit Lakes a little bit. I'm guessing you might know where that's at, Dave, but not sure. But yeah, quarterback situation. That's going to be the topic as far as players go. What happens? Does the Vikings sign Kirk Cousins back? They interviewed Kirk today as the team was doing their exit interviews, cleaning out their lockers, that kind of stuff. And Kirk did make the comment that at this point in time, it's not necessarily about the money. It's about the situation, things like that. So, there is talk that Kirk could give him a little bit of a discount to stay. I don't know that that's the case, but Ryan, I think signing Kirk again, Hunter will leave. I don't want to lose Danielle Hunter, but I think he's probably going to be priced out of the area where Kwesi's going to be comfortable with that. He's going to be 30 years old. So, how many years does he have left as a top flight pass rusher? 2, 3, maybe. If you could sign him for a 2 to 3 year deal at $20 to $23 million a year, I would bring him back in a heartbeat. But the thing of it is, if we're going to sign Justin Jefferson to that deal that everybody expects is going to happen, I don't think you can afford to sign or bring back both Danielle Hunter and Kirk Cousins. Honestly, I've been saying that it seems more and more likely that Cousins comes back for a 1 to 2 year deal. That's something that's going to have to be figured out in the next 2 months, because second week of March, his contract voids and he is a free agent. So, it's not going to be that long before we have some clarity on the Cousins deal. If he hits free agency, I think he's gone. Because I think somebody like Atlanta, that's been the hot rumor, is where because he lives down in the offseason, that Atlanta would be the likely landing spot for Cousins. He's got weapons down there. You got Bijan Robinson. You've got the unicorn, Kyle Pitts. You got a couple of good wide receivers down there. So I could definitely see him going there, depending upon who the head coach is going to be. Hunter had a big year. Going to want a big payday, time to move on. I think it's possible. Like I said, I'd like to keep him. Wanham and Jones will get overpaid too. Patrick Jones isn't going to get overpaid because he hasn't done much. He might still be under contract. I think he's got 1 more year left. DJ Wanham is a free agent. And up until this year, I just said let Wanham walk. Now, if you can sign Wanham to a reasonable deal, I would bring him back, because we got to have something right now. I think you have I think Pat Jones and Andre Carter are the only edge rushers under contract for next year as of this point. So, but looking at the quarterback thing, I think the Vikings are going to make a move for a quarterback in the first round. I don't know if you guys saw the story that came out here over the weekend. I forget the guy's name from ESPN, or does some stuff, and he actually works with the Los Angeles Chargers now, but he was on Mina Kimes' show and had made a mentioned that most people did not realize how hard the Vikings tried to move up to get Anthony Richardson last year. According to him, basically it was the Vikings were ready to give the farm up pretty much. I think I heard rumors Danielle Hunter was part of the deal. There was a couple of number 1 pick, 2-3 number 1 picks involved in it. Whatever the deal was to move up to number 3 to get Anthony Richardson. They didn't say number 3, but that's what the prevailing theory is that it was Arizona. But Arizona turned the Vikings down and went with the deal from the Houston Texans instead, because they assumed that the Vikings would be too good and those picks would be late first round picks. So if Kwesi was willing to do that last year, I think he's going to be willing to do it this year, and I think they're going to do what they need to. I'm hearing more and more steam all of the time that the Vikings really like Jaden Daniels, and he could be the target. Now, the whole thing we thought last week, okay, the Bears are probably sticking with Justin Fields, and they're going to take Marvin Harrison Jr. at number 1, which kind of moves the quarterbacks around a little bit. Now I've heard after yesterday that they're not necessarily sold on Justin Fields, so they could take Caleb Williams at number 1. Believe the hell out of that rumor. The same story came out about Bryce Young. The Bryce Young rumor didn't come behind with a reputable source, though. I heard it was Bryce Young they were going after, but this rumor, he's a draft guy. His name is escaping me right now. If anybody remembers it, put it in the comments to remind me. But he was adamant that the Vikings were going after Anthony Richardson. And be that as it may, it didn't happen. But I think that leads credence to the fact that if the Vikings determine that a Jaden Daniels, a Drake May, or who, up in that range up there is the guy that they want, they're going to do what is necessary to try to get up there to get that guy. Beyond that, realistically, the only other guy first round worthy, I believe that, the Vikings might target is the kid who's playing over my shoulder back there right now, Michael Penix Jr. I think he would fit well in Kevin O'Connell's offense also. He likes to throw the ball down the field. He throws a really nice deep ball. He's accurate. He moves around the pocket. The biggest thing is, he's got an injury history. And that concerns me the most with Penix. But take Fields in a heartbeat. Justin Fields, I don't if they released him, which they're not going to do, I would maybe take a flyer on him. But I'm not giving up draft capital to go get him because I'm not sold on him, to be honest. I was hoping the Bears were sold on him, but I guess we'll see. Do we know when the announcement on Kirk's future will be made? Will we know before March? Yes, we will know before March because his contract, I just mentioned this earlier before you joined on, but good evening, by the way. His contract voids at the end of the 2023 league year, so like the second week of March. So if they do not have an extension worked out with him by the start of the new league year, he becomes a free agent and free to sign anywhere. And I think if he gets to that point, he probably ends up elsewhere. Jaden Daniels has 2 throws, screens, and bombs, and he can run. Why do you? He does. He can do more than that. And like I said, I love Michael Penix as a quarterback. And if his medicals come back, that knee that he's blown out twice is okay. His shoulders are okay. I'm perfectly fine with bringing in Penix. Penix is my QB3 right now. My 3 is Drake May, then Jaden Daniels, then Michael Penix, and they're all pretty close. But it's going to be tough to see. I mean, we got to see what the medicals do. We get to the Senior Bowl, we get to some of this other stuff, the combine, all that stuff is going to show a lot on these rookies. But first and foremost, we're going to have to find out what's going on with Kirk Cousins. If they sign Kirk, then it gives you a little bit more wiggle room, I believe. James, I'm going to put a deal on here right now. I would not trade a 7th-round pick for Mac Jones. Mac Jones is absolute garbage. And if Kwesi trades for Mac Jones and they pretend that he is going to be the starting quarterback, then I'm going to take back all the defense of everything I've ever said about Kwesi because Mac Jones is garbage. I didn't want him when he was drafted. I don't want him now, and I won't want him next year. And that's the nicest thing I can say about Mac Jones. I saw that article too, though. It was a clickbait article. It was, and I don't understand why all these national articles come out with this stuff that the Vikings are going to give up valuable trade capital to go trade for some failed player from another team that just because he's a first-round guy or whatever. Ryan, can we agree Bo Nix is just Mac Jones with a slightly dumber sounding name? Yes, I don't want Bo Nix either. I don't think Bo Nix is going to make it in the NFL. He's thrown for a ton of yards and things like that, but they don't ask him to do a whole lot as far as reads go and things like that. So I don't want Bo Nix. I'm not a fan of JJ McCarthy either. So I'm out on Caleb Williams too. I think the off the field stuff, the ego and all that other stuff, I think he's got bust written all over him because he believes his own hype. Just my opinion. I mean, some of you guys might like Caleb Williams and that's fine, but I don't. We'll have to renew our season tickets before we know if Kirk will be back. I want a new quarterback. Yeah, I don't know what the season ticket renewal stuff. I'm guessing those of you who have season tickets will be getting them the renewals soon. I live 4.5 hours away, so I don't have the season tickets. But Caleb Williams is just another USC quarterback. Like I said, the hype is there, but I don't know that he can. He handles adversity all that well. We saw that in some of these games this year. I mean, he didn't come out and do his press conferences after a couple of games where he lost. He went on the sidelines and was crying to his mom over on the sidelines that one game. And he's another one of these guys. And, we got in trouble for saying this about a certain Vikings player here a few years ago, but, he's one of these self-entitled players who has been told that he's incredible ever since he's been 9 years old. And, he believes his own hype. And he's, when it comes down to the point where he gets to the NFL, where he's not necessarily the greatest player stepping on the field, when you've got defenders that are bigger, faster, stronger than most things he's seen in college, he's going to have trouble, and I don't think he's going to make it. I could be flat wrong, and if I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong on it. But it kind of is what it is on that one. That 10% ownership thing, yeah, that one got me too. I don't know for sure that that's legit. I've heard multiple places that it was. But yeah, if you're a rookie coming into the NFL and you're demanding 10% ownership of a team, no, you can just, no. I don't want you on my team. Go away. Beyond the quarterback situation, we've got a lot of other stuff that we needed, to go through. Like I said, Danielle Hunter, what happens there? I think Hunter's probably gone. I'd like to keep him, but I think he's gone. I think he's going to get more money elsewhere. That's, 16 and a half sack season. He's going to get $25 million someplace. I don't think the Vikings are going to spend that on a 30-year-old edge rusher. He says he wants to be here. I believe him that he wants to be here, but I also believe him that, he's never really got that bank, as far as the big, huge contract, and this is his last real shot to do it. So if he goes elsewhere, I can't fault the guy for it. On top of that, what do the Vikings do at running back? I think Ty Chandler has proven that he can take over the RB1 duties next year. You're going to need to have somebody, to pair in a committee with him. I think as a change of pace back is Alexander Madison, that guy. I don't know that he is. Madison is the first time, this is the first leading rusher in team history, so since 1961, where the leading rusher on the team didn't score a rushing touchdown. So, there's that. I think the Vikings can draft a running back in the mid to late rounds and pair him with Chandler and be just fine. Kene Nwangwu can go as far as I'm concerned. We kept him around for his kick return abilities. I don't think he returned a kick past the 30-yard line all year. You can get Brandon Powell or somebody back there, bring them back on a cheap deal and have them kick return duties, or some rookie or something. But it's not worth wasting a roster spot on a guy for a kick returner, especially when kick returns are, they're trying to phase him out of the game completely. Beyond that, cut Harrison Phillips, resurrecting the defense in B-Flow's image. We got to rebuild the trenches on the defensive line. Absolutely. We don't have that true run-stopping nose tackle. We don't have guys that are, I'm okay with Harrison Phillips if you kick him out to defensive the defensive end, but not at nose tackle. What do I think of Baker Mayfield as a bridge quarterback for the rookie? I wouldn't be opposed to it. Now, I've heard from several places that there's mutual interest in Tampa and from Baker Mayfield's camp of him coming back there next year. So I think that's probably likely spot where he goes, but he stays in Tampa. But we'll see how the playoffs go. If he comes out and looks awful in the playoffs, they may change their tune there as well. But beyond that, we've got KJ Osborne, who's a free agent, probably won't be back unless you can sign him to a cheap deal. If he does come cheap, then he could be back. But the biggest one probably at least on the defensive side of thing is longtime Minnesota Viking Harrison Smith, who has been with the team for 12 seasons. I believe he's 34 years old now. It kind of sounded a little like he's done when they interviewed him here after the game yesterday. Whether he is done or not, I know he said he's, having the ability to play but not the desire. He made a comment like that. He said talking about his shoulder hurting and things like that. So I think there'll be a little bit of time. He says, if I retire, you're not going to know it, but you'll figure it out eventually. So he's not going to go out with any fanfare or anything like that. He's just going to be done, the way it sounds. And I fully expect him to retire at the end of the year rather than go someplace else. He's due $19 million from the Vikings next year, and they can't afford to pay that. So if he does play, it's not going to be on that $19 million. It's going to be a lot like Adam Thielen this year, although Adam Thielen had a lot better year than I think most people expected him to. Harrison Smith, I love the guy. He's been my favorite player ever since he's been here. But he's getting up there in age. His body's wearing down. He's not the guy he used to be. Still an effective player, but he doesn't make those splash plays like we've seen him made for over a decade. So I think we saw Harrison Smith play his last game as a Viking yesterday. Beyond that, there's 24 free agents total on this team right now, and most of them I would think are probably not going to be back unless maybe some of them are depth guys. But we will break that down more on the main show. Lance and I'll talk about it in the offseason. We get into some of that stuff. But Harrison Smith seemed like he was slow in coverage. Yeah, he did seem like he'd lost a step this year. There was talk that he was going to be gone at the end of the year, and then when they brought Flores in, Smith restructured his deal to come in to, because he wanted to stay. He told, his agent was getting calls from other teams, and he told his agent, no, I'm staying with Minnesota, make it work. But, I can easily see Harrison Smith calling it a career, and it's a borderline Hall of Fame career. The guy, he's got them. He's right up there, if not still tied for the active lead for interceptions. He's top 2 or 3 in the NFL. And he's been a hell of a player for, like I said, 12 years. But age catches up with everybody, and he's going to be a Ring of Honor inductee very shortly after he retires, and deserves consideration for the Hall of Fame. He does, in my mind. Beyond that, like I said, there's, Greg Joseph, I think, is a free agent. I want to find another kicker because I am sick of kicker PTSD every time the kicker walks out there onto the field. Buller, or, most of the defensive line, I think there's potential for a turnover there. Jordan Hicks is going to be a free agent. We need to decide if we want to bring him back. Now, Jordan Hicks had a hell of a season, I thought. Last year under Donatel, I thought he was burnt and done. But coming under Flores, he played very well. If a deal can be brought to bring him back on a reasonable deal, I'd bring him back for another season. There again, we'll have to see what happens there. But it's going to be an interesting offseason, and it's going to start sooner rather than later. I mean, they can start negotiating with Kirk Cousins today, tomorrow, if they want to. Same thing with Justin Jefferson. I would assume we will see an extension coming with Jefferson sooner rather than later. I mean, we thought that was coming all last summer, but I think the team has to get that figured out. They're not going to let him play on that 5th-year option. They'll have a new contract in hand before the season starts. We have a lot of holes. We do absolutely, Brian. Cornerback, as much as I hate to say it because we've drafted 86 cornerbacks in the last 8 years, cornerback is a problem. We've got guys, and not that the guys we have are bad cornerbacks. They just don't necessarily fit Flores' scheme. You need to have guys, taller, big guys that can cover in man coverage. When you bring in those blitzes and everything else, and the guys we've got are all shorter, that, I think Mekhi Blackman still has potential. Caleb Evans, well, for the middle of the season, toward the end of the season, he tailed off badly. Booth, still hasn't developed to the point where they expected him to. With all these holes, it's going to be difficult to trade up. We've got free agency, and quarterback is the most important position. You got to get that right. As we've seen, you can't go in there with a Nick Mullins or a Josh Dobbs or Jaron Hall as your starting quarterback. You need to get that right first and foremost. You can pick up I haven't looked to see who's going to be free agents and cornerbacks, but you get one good cornerback back there to pair with Byron Murphy, who will be back next year. I think you're good there. Then, that clears up a lot, but lack of pass rush exposed to secondary. Hunter can, and that was a big thing when DJ Wanham went down. Danielle Hunter went 2.5 weeks without a sack, and that coincidentally coincided with Wanham going down and us not having any pass rush off that other side. So pass rusher is a need. Interior defensive line is a need, as Doc just mentioned here. And cornerback, I mean, that's our biggest ones. Offensive line, Dalton Reisner's a free agent. I think he wants to be here, and I think the Vikings like him enough to bring him back, and I think they should bring him back. If you can find an upgrade to Garrett Bradbury, I would do so. Whether they do or whether they don't, that remains to be seen. But, there's plenty of holes and there's plenty of questions on this team. And punters are guys you can pick up pretty much anywhere. I'm not concerned with that right now. You can get an undrafted free agent later on to at least bring competition in for Ryan Wright. I was a big Ryan Wright guy last year, but he had a bad year this year. So you got to bring in competition for him. You need a new kicker. Go get Iowa's punter. Yeah, the problem with getting Iowa's punters, you're going to have to give a draft pick to get him. Probably that kid could probably go fifth roundish. But Sweat would look good in purple. Yeah, he would. I would take Sweat in a heartbeat. He'd be a beast on that line. But there again, he's going in the first round. So if you're taking a quarterback, you're not getting Sweat. You're not getting Jared Verse or one of those edge rushers. So you got to prioritize what you absolutely need. And I'd say I think quarterback is number one priority. I think Kwesi and KOC are going to say that quarterback is number one priority. They're going to get their guy in the first round, whether it be a Drake May, whether it be a Michael Penix, whether it be a Jaden Daniels, whoever they decide. I hope it's not Bo Nix. I hope it's not J.J. McCarthy, but we will leave that for another time, another place. But yeah, with that, Chris Jenkins at DT, he's another guy that's worth a look. like I said, it's going to be an interesting offseason, trying to figure out all these holes, trying to figure out, who gets re-signed, who does what, who goes where, that kind of stuff. And we're going to be here for it all. I mean, I plan on doing the Monday shows along here, talking draft prospects, all that stuff leading up to the draft and the offseason. The Friday show where Lance and I are going to be breaking stuff down like we normally do. Try to have guests on to talk about the draft, things like that. Darisaw seemed like a turnstile in like 5 games. Yeah, the last couple of games he didn't play well either. I don't know if he was dealing with a little bit of an injury thing. I don't know if that affected it, but Darisaw is another guy that's going to be coming up for a contract here sooner rather than later. So trade back into the first. I actually could see that happening, Dave. Depends on what they do with the quarterback situation. I mean, if they miss out on one of the top 3 and they think Penix is a guy that they can get later in the draft, yeah, you maybe trade back a few spots or trade up from the second and get him and get an edge rusher or something. I don't know. Trouble in the next few years. I don't think so, Brian. I mean, as we saw with the Houston Texans, Houston was god awful for 4 years, and now all of a sudden they're in the playoffs this year. So you can make a quick turnaround in a year or two. I mean, if we have to be bad for a year, I'm okay with that. If it sets his team up for long-term success for something a team that's going to consistently contend for a Super Bowl, because in the end, that's what we all want. We want a Lombardi trophy, to coin the phrase from Purple Daily, one before we die. And it's, I was 2 years old the last time the Vikings were in the Super Bowl. I don't remember it. I would like to remember them in a Super Bowl, and I would like to remember them actually winning a Super Bowl. So D'Amico Ryans, what could have been. Yeah, I mean, he came in last year, so I mean, he's a good coach. I mean, he was under consideration for the Vikings, and he withdrew his name in 2022 because he didn't feel he was ready. But that one extra year, I mean, yeah, D'Amico Ryans is a good head coach. Of course, and CJ Stroud, who I'll fully admit I was wrong about. I didn't think CJ Stroud was going to be that good of a quarterback, but he's proven me wrong this year, and I fully admit it. And good on CJ Stroud. We'll see how he does in the playoffs here, but he had a hell of a season. So, but beyond that, we're about 38 minutes in here. I know that the game is going back there, and there's some guys on that team, on both of those teams, that could potentially be purple next year with the Vikings. So we're going to go check that stuff out. But want to thank all you guys again for watching, joining in on the chat like you always do. Love having these conversations with you guys every week. Want to thank the Filipino fan club, of course, Noy, BB, Jen, Wilma, Nip, all you guys over there that watch every week. Appreciate it as well. Programming notes for this week. Brunswick's best should be back on Wednesday this week. Lance was under the weather and stuff last week and had some other stuff going on, so we couldn't get it in. But should have that back this week, looking at number 30. As it sits right now, we will not have a Vikings Uncensored studio show on Friday. Lance and I are going to take a week off to kind of catch our breaths a little bit, and not a whole lot otherwise to talk about this, but we will be back in the full slate of shows as well. So stay tuned for all that. If you haven't done so, hit that like button on your way out the door. Appreciate the likes, the follows, everything else. Helps us out a ton. Helps us build this brand, and that's what we try to do every day, is try to make this better, more interactive, and more fun for you with talking to you guys every week. So appreciate it. With that, everybody have a great rest of your week. We'll see you Monday for Brunswick's best, and let's go watch a national championship game and see what goes on there. So you guys all have a great night, and we will see you around the corner. Skol Vikes.
Bye.